Hello guys, Yami Yusaku here, and welcome to my Yugioh Vrains episode 6 review. Now, in this episode we got a lot of key interaction between Aoi and Yusaku, and just a lot of interaction and information about Aoi generally that has allowed us to finally get some insight into what her character is and what her role may be as the female lead. Given up to this point, her role has been pretty minimal. I mean, she's been a spectator to a couple of duels, she chimed in during the Go incident and that type of thing, but she hasn't done a whole lot otherwise. And I gotta say, thus far, with what we've seen of her, particularly in this episode, she's a pretty depressing character to see. I mean, honestly, every part of her seems numb. So far, when we've seen other characters say words like, "into the Vrains," to jump into the virtual world and start dueling, they're all excited. Her, on the other hand, she has a completely blank expression on her face. She's chilling on the couch, and she just kind of mumbles, "into the Vrains." And then suddenly she's this cheery and like blue angel who everybody loves, the popular person at school who's also friendly. She seems friendly enough, at least, though rather sassy given the way that she's rejecting people for duels and everything else. So it makes you wonder which personality is, and this sounds super cliche, but the real Aoi. Is it one of those two? Is it somewhere in between? Because clearly they're both a part of her. They both wouldn't exist so strongly. Her virtual self in a universe like what we're seeing with Yugioh Everything is almost as important as her real self, and if people made the connection between the two, she'd probably be a lot more popular and well-liked because everybody loves Blue Angel, yet nobody knows who Aoi Zaizen is other than, oh, isn't that the same last name as that guy who runs Soul Tech? So the question then becomes, is the Blue Angel persona that she puts on, is that who she really wants to be, or is that just sort of an overcompensation for her lack of being noticed in the real world, that she has to turn herself into this idol? She feels the need to make up for the lack of attention that she gets in the real world. And my other question becomes, why is she so desperate for her brother's approval? It could just be because they're family, but part of me also believes that there was probably some other sort of event that happened in the past that made her so desperate to gain that. And given how I see some loose ties between her relationship to her brother and Cyrus and Zane's relationship from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, part of me wonders if maybe a similar event occurred. You know, Cyrus messed up in playing Power Bond and Zane was critical of him, but it was a sort of tough love type of criticism, like, you have to learn how to use this card, you have to think. Learn your actions, and then I will give it back to you. I want you to understand this lesson. So maybe something similar happened with her. Maybe she made a mistake with dueling or something else, and that's the reason her brother's somewhat hesitant about her doing the speed duels. He's trying to do a little bit of that tough love. I'll take it away until you prove you're responsible. And despite the fact that he's not home in this episode, and it's clear based off the little robot that's similar to Yusaku's and the way the robot talks to Aoi that he's probably not home super frequently at night, that he does care about Aoi, and I think he's going out and making that money to give her the best life he possibly can, hence why he's asking, why are you unhappy? He wants to help change that, and he's calling her in the middle of his workday, he's stepping out to do that. He wants to keep her safe, is the bottom line. I don't think there's much malicious intent there, much like how Zane, yeah, he was a little bit harsh to Cyrus, but he never wanted to hurt him. That was the reason he gave up his soul to protect Cyrus in his duel against Camula. So with all that being said, I think it's a classic case of what we see in a lot of movies and stories of the younger kid, or in this case a younger sibling, wanting to chase this dream of being the idol and stuff, and the parent, or in this case an older sibling, is concerned about the risks and dangers associated with that, and whether they'll be able to find, a lot of times it's stable work, but in this case it's the dangers of the fact that she could actually die during a speed duel, and proving herself with that. I think it could be the fact that she's not, like, straightforward and super honest with him, and there's a lack of clear understanding, I think is an event in the past. Hopefully we'll find out down the line. Before moving on to the interactions between Aoi and Yusaku in this episode, let's talk about Yusaku individually for a few minutes here, and what he did in this episode. I think we are starting to see a little bit into the edgy shell that he shows the outer world here, and I think a lot of people are going to read these signs differently than I did. I don't know if I'm right, it's just speculation. But let's start off with the scene in the trailer when Kusanagi first finds out that Aoi and Blue Angel are the same person. He and the AI immediately start roasting Yusaku about how he couldn't talk to girls well, and a lot of people would say Yusaku has a look of not caring on his face, but I took it more as a slight frown, like he was kinda hurt on the inside, and that was a blow at his internal character, and maybe his confidence even a little bit. I think we're seeing a softer side that's inside Yusaku that always believed the only reason I don't have a lot of friends is because I choose not to, not because I can't get along with people. And I think the move from Kusanagi and the AI here to roast him about it basically makes him question that a little bit, and that burns. I think he is someone who actually cares about people a lot, whether he admits it or not, and continuing off that, the fact that he cares about people shows, I think, when he's talking to Aoi, and Aoi's like, oh, you're just using me to get to my brother, and he tries to correct himself, and he does seem slightly flustered that that's what she thinks, because I don't think he wants to hurt her feelings. I think Yusaku has a good person inside of him, and I think the subject of Aoi is what's starting to reveal that. Not to sound super cheesy here, but I think guys have a tendency to show their softer side a little more openly to girls. Whether that's always true or not, probably not. But nonetheless, I think we're seeing that a little bit with Yusaku here because, this is the first time he's interacted with Aoi, and I do think we're starting to see something underneath of that classic Yusaku, I don't care about anything, I'm an edgelord, you can go, bow beneath me if you want to be edgy too, but I'm not really going to care about your opinion type of persona that he puts up. Now moving on to the interactions between Aoi and Yusaku, it's way early to be calling this, but I gotta say, at this point, well, it's super early. If there were to be any two leads I was going to ship, it would probably be these two. It's not my favorite subject to talk about, but I will bring it up because I'm being straight. They balance each other out sort of nicely. Let's start out from Yusaku's perspective. One of his primary objectives is to prevent the world from knowing that he's Playmaker. That way Hanoi can't go hunting him down or anything else. Similarly, Aoi doesn't necessarily want the world to know she's Blue Angel, otherwise it would be public knowledge and she would probably be the most popular person in the school given the way everybody seems to react to her Blue Angel stuff on the big TV screens and whatnot. So, given that information, they kind of suit each other well in real life, and that they can both kind of hide and be together and be friends without needing to worry about drawing all that attention or revealing information to somebody who would go blabbing and stuff, given they're both secretive people to begin with who kind of hide in the background. With that being the case, it also presents the opportunity for them to come out and be more public and be more social, I guess, together and, work and balance each other out and look to the other person as a teammate, so to speak, in terms of dealing with the public. Then if we go into the Vrains world, they're both also in similar positions that they're very popular people. You saw how it was being called the duel of the century in this episode when Aoi and Yusaku, or Playmaker, I guess in this case, were dueling. In that case, they share a lot of similarities. Then we move on to a more classic plot point in Yu-Gi-Oh! Being the old damsel in distress, quote-unquote, type of thing. In this episode, we saw Aoi get seemingly almost like possessed by some kind of evil card that Bishop threw at her. Don't really know what's going to happen with that yet, but we can guess it's probably not very good things. Yusaku fighting the Knights of Hanoi, which Bishop is one of, is likely going to be the person to rescue her, and it's a classic thing in fiction that when the dude saves the girl, they end up being together, so that's quite possible, especially considering it's happening this early on. I mean, if we look at one of the other most popular ships in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Being Aki and Yusei, that saving, so to speak, didn't happen until much later into Season 1. And building off that, there's one key thing that distinguishes Yusaku from most of our other protagonists thus far, at least in my opinion, the way I'm reading what happened in this episode in the trailer scene. He's not totally oblivious towards, feelings for other humans and being attracted to other people, the way our other protagonists have seemed to be, other than kind of Yuya and kind of Yuma. It's hard to say where that went since both of those things sort of happened at the very end of their shows, respectively, if you even want to count them as anything. But nonetheless, Yusaku seemed a little bit hurt when they said that he couldn't talk to girls. That implies that, yeah, he does like girls, and yeah, maybe he might want a relationship somewhere down the road, which Yugi, Jaden, and Yusei never seem to express whatsoever. So that's another thing working in the favor of this being a possibility. Like I said, it's super early to make the call, but I will say I think there is more evidence than usual for being this early into the show, especially given we've only really had Aoi in one episode with any kind of relevant screen time at all thus far. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the plot a little bit, which in this episode primarily revolves around the fact that, yeah, Hanoi threw some kind of evil card in to possess Aoi. Now she's dueling Playmaker. Seems Bishop wants something to do with using her to hunt down Yusaku to get back the Ignis, and that's the reason that Ignis was able to detect the evil, or the Hanoi, that was in her, and it's just strange to me to see where that's going. Unfortunately, being possessed isn't exactly a good thing for female characters after Arc 5. It leaves sort of a bad taste in your mouth, or a sense of worry about where she may be going. I just hope she doesn't end up in the same situation that our Bracelet girls did from Arc 5, and mostly getting kind of sidelined towards the end of the show, and being evil, and not really getting a lot of representation as their true selves, not being controlled. Granted, it's super early in the show, so I doubt that'll happen, versus the stuff that happened to the Bracelet Girls was really late when they were trying to shove a ton of plot into those last 50 episodes, but that's a different rant for a different time. I'm curious to see where all of this is going. I think the next episode is going to be an important duel between Yusaku and Aoi. I'd be really surprised if Yusaku lost. What I'm more curious to see is what happens to her when she's got this evil presence inside of her. Is Hanoi going to, like, totally control her and then have her, like, attack him when she loses or something like that? Is he going to end up saving her, and then the damsel in distress classic scene that Yu-Gi-Oh likes to play? I don't know, it's hard to tell. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If not, constructive criticism is always welcome. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.